Hey, bookworms and curious cats, let's go on a big adventure, a trip through time to explore the amazing world of English literature. From old stories whispered around campfires to modern books that make us think, we'll discover the stories that shaped minds and changed our world. Imagine literature as a giant rambling house. Each room is a different time period, each piece of furniture a different author or style. We'll meet important people like Shakespeare, whose words are still famous today, and learn about the history behind these great works. This isn't just about old books, it's about understanding ourselves, our past, and the power of words to take us to new places, challenge us and change us. So, get ready to be amazed by the magic of English literature. Our trip starts a long time ago, with epic poems and stories of brave heroes. Imagine a world without writing, where stories were told out loud, changing a little each time. This is where we meet Beowulf, a super important story in early English literature. Beowulf is a story about monsters and heroes, courage and sacrifice. It's about a warrior who defeats the monster Grendel, his scary mum, and a fire-breathing dragon. Though written down around the year 1000, these stories are probably much older, showing us what was important to warrior cultures. But Beowulf wasn't the only story. We also have the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, a history book that tells us a lot about early England. These early stories, though often simple and violent, started the amazing tradition of English literature. Now we enter the medieval period, and English literature gets more colourful and exciting. Geoffrey Chaucer, a funny and talented storyteller, is our guide. His best work, The Canterbury Tales, is a bunch of stories told by a group of people travelling to Canterbury Cathedral. Imagine a mixed group of knights and nuns, shopkeepers and millers, all on a trip together. Each person, from the noble knight to the sassy wife of Bath, has a story showing us what medieval England was like. Chaucer is great not just because of his characters, but also because he used Middle English, the language people spoke then. Reading the Canterbury Tales is like travelling back in time to the 1300s. Here comes the big one! The Renaissance is like a huge party, and the star is William Shakespeare, the biggest name in English literature. His plays, from sad stories like Hamlet and Macbeth to funny ones like Much Ado About Nothing and Twelfth Night, are still popular today. Shakespeare was so good because he understood people, his characters, rich or poor, heroes or villains, deal with things we all experience: love, loss, ambition and revenge. He gave us famous lines like "to be or not to be" and "all the world's a stage." But the Renaissance wasn't just Shakespeare. Christopher Marlowe with his sad story Dr. Faustus and Edmund Spenser with his long poem The Faerie Queene were also important writers. Section 5. Enlightenment and reason. Order in the world, order in words. After the Renaissance party, the 1700s brought the Age of Enlightenment, a time of logic and new ideas. Think wigs, revolutions and science. In literature, this meant clear, witty and satirical writing. Jonathan Swift, who wrote Gulliver's Travels, was a master of satire. Through Gulliver's crazy trips, Swift showed us society's problems. Alexander Pope, with his clever poems like An Essay on Criticism and The Rape of the Lock, was another literary giant. His work showed the Enlightenment's focus on reason and order. Section 6. Gothic Shadows and Romantic Hearts, a new era. As the 1700s ended, things changed. The Romantic period loved emotion, imagination and individual power. It was like a wild storm, replacing the neat gardens of the Enlightenment with untamed landscapes. Romantics loved nature's power and beauty. Section 7. Dickens and the Victorians. Social realities in print. The 1800s, the Victorian era, saw lots of social and industrial changes, and literature reflected these changes. Charles Dickens, with his stories of London and characters like Oliver Twist and Ebenezer Scrooge, became the voice of this time. Dickens's novels showed the problems of poverty, child labour and the working class. His stories were funny and sad, entertaining and thought-provoking. The Bronte sisters, who wrote Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights, and poets like Alfred Lord Tennyson and Christina Rossetti, also explored important themes of the time. Section 8. Modern Voices, New Visions. A World in Pieces. The 1900s brought big changes. Two world wars, new technology, and changing social rules shook the world, and literature changed too. Modernism questioned old ways and showed the uncertainty of the modern world. Virginia Woolf, with her unique writing style, explored women's lives in books like Mrs. Dalloway and To the Lighthouse. James Joyce's Ulysses pushed the boundaries of language, while T.S. Eliot's poetry showed the sadness after the war. These writers explored the complicated modern world, giving us new ways to understand life. Section 9. Enduring Legacy, the ever-evolving story of English literature. In the 2000s, English literature keeps changing. Post-colonial literature shares stories from different cultures, and new types of stories like speculative fiction and graphic novels are popular. The internet makes it easy to find new authors and stories from around the world. English literature is still growing, with each generation adding its own voice. So, dive in and explore, read a lot, be curious, and be open to new ideas. In these stories, you'll find not just entertainment, but also a reflection of ourselves, our history, and the amazing human spirit.